Hello, I'm Philippa Gregory. With me is Geoffrey Carnell, and we're here today in the Quaker Bookshop of the Friends Meeting House in London to discuss his new book, Gandhi's Interpreter. Geoffrey, it's amazing to me that we first met 30 years ago when I came as a PhD student and you were my supervisor at Edinburgh University. At the time, you taught me really everything I then knew about accuracy and a love of history, and you really illuminated my supervised period with you as I was working on my PhD thesis. It's remarkable to me that it's been so long. It's also remarkable to me that during that time we've stayed in touch. I've sent novels to you, I've consulted you on things, and you sent me a very early copy of this book, Gandhi's Interpreter. And now, to my great pleasure, I wrote a foreword for the book, and so in a way this is a joint publication. What I wanted to ask you is what really brought you to the subject of this character?
Well, I was actually asked to write the book by good people at Woodbrook, the Quaker Study Centre in Birmingham, because they knew that I had worked with Horace in India in 1949-1950. And it so happened that it gave me the opportunity to explore an experience which made a deep impression on me at the time and has affected me deeply ever since about how to stop having a war. I've always been very struck by the fact that so often that wars happen because nobody quite knows how to stop them. And in spring 1950, India and Pakistan were on the verge of war, but between Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister, and Liaquat Ali, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, it was possible to prevent the war happening, but an important part of that was finding out exactly what was going on in the areas where there were riots, which was the cause for all the war fever. And I was working in the Friends Service Unit at the time, and we were deployed to find out what was happening in different places. And so I felt I was part of a big organized prevention of war organization. And I've always felt rather good about that, to feel that I was able to be part of an organization which was actually stopping a war happening. And I feel it's not everybody has had that experience. And by looking into this experience and looking at how Horace Alexander, who played a big part in this peacemaking activity, where he had come from, and he left a huge archive of stuff which is in Friends House Library in Woodbrook, and he was, and it enabled me to find out how he started off as an optimistic young student in Cambridge, and in the awful traumatic events of the First World War, and after the war, hopes of the League of Nations, then his discovery of Gandhi. And it was a sense of his developing power to be a peacemaker that I felt was an important, a very useful thing to detail, to describe, to make people understand how it happened.
Although Horace Alexander was such an important character in preventing war, he's not someone who really appears very much in the historical record, and I wonder how that affected your research.
He, as a matter of the way he worked, he always worked behind the scenes. He avoided publicity like the plague, and his work would have been badly affected if people had known, for example, that he was seeing X or seeing Y. So it was important for him not to be in public. And of course, the result has been that subsequently he's remained out of the public eye very thoroughly. But nonetheless, he was, I think, quite a significant figure, particularly, I suppose, in the transition of power between Britain and India in 1947, which certainly was one of the people who helped to make a friendly parting, not a hostile party.
So do you have a sense of restoring his place in history?
That is certainly what I've tried to do.
And what was his relationship with Gandhi?
He met Gandhi first in the context of opium, the controls on the sale of opium, which the Congress Party, which Gandhi was very much remember, was one of their campaigns, an anti-drug campaign essentially. And he met him in 1928 when he was in India looking at opium issues. And he was rather startled by Gandhi's frank assessment that really the problem could not be properly tackled until the British got out of the way, got off our backs, as he said. And Gandhi convinced him that the British Empire in India was an obstruction to a whole lot of things, and that India was perfectly capable of running its own affairs, and therefore he spent, after meeting Gandhi, he spent a lot of his energy in putting the case for Indian independence in Britain and easing the way with the British government for accepting this. He had a very interesting relation with R.A. Butler. But Gandhi and he obviously liked each other very much, and it was as a personality, I think, that he was particularly affected by Gandhi. And one of the last letters he wrote, he dictated to his stepdaughter when he was nearly 100, was addressed to Mr. Gandhi, as though Mr. Gandhi was still alive. This might be thought of as a piece of dementia, but it wasn't that. It was that Gandhi was such an important presence as a character in his mind. And in the Gandhi film, he was terribly impressed by the way the Gandhi was presented. It was quite authentic.
It's a book with a lot of affection. It's very warm. Surprisingly for a scholarly book, it's also quite funny. And there's a lot of you in it. What sort of reader do you think is going to enjoy this book?
Well, it's written, I suppose, with Quakers very much in mind, but I hope that anyone who is... I think people who are interested in the ethos of Cambridge before 1914 will find it very attractive, because it is a very Cambridge book in many ways. One of the most delightful episodes in it, I think, is when Horace was walking in the foothills of the Himalayas in 1953, and he lost his way. Well, he went down the wrong path, and he had to seek shelter in an ashram nearby. And the ashram was run by two people from King's College, Cambridge, his own college. And they had a wonderful evening. The King's College meant a great deal to him. He felt that it has a resilience, something which enabled you to keep on with things even when you were discouraged. And this is something that was also said by Maynard Keynes, who was also a King's man, that he felt that people after 1914 never quite had that resilience which that generation in Cambridge had. And I think there's something in that the book is partly a presentation of this sheer joy in living. And so I think anybody who likes to enjoy their lives might enjoy it too.